Hi, everybody. Welcome, welcome. We're just catching up real quick, talking about houses and moving. And we have an old house too, Brian. So every time we do anything, like it opens up a can of worms and it's part of the fun.
One thing turns into many.
Yeah, I'm sure. Who else? Anybody else owned an old house on the chat? Let me know. We're talking about some grumblings. These are maybe high class problems, but a guy who comes and does our pest control was like, she's like, I've seen a lot of husbands out in the yard lately just groaning and grumbling. That's like we're seeing all over the place these days. Let's see. My camera just got frozen. Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you. Oh,
okay, I'm going to kill some stuff here. All right, unfrozen is good. You had a good look in your face during my screen freeze like this.
Oh, I'm great at that. I'm great at frozen screen freeze.
1898. Hello, welcome everybody. Hi, Peter. Who's there? Hello from Stonebridge.
This one's 1905, so 1898 beats
ours is, I think, 1820, so it's pretty old. Yeah, but you know, it's character. So, hey, Carrie, what's happening? Wisconsin. That's cool. Brian, where are you? I forgot. Are you somewhere fabulous?
Virginia.
Northern Virginia. That's pretty fabulous, actually. Very nice. Are you close to DC? Like area?
Yeah, closer to Dulles. So like I'm
okay, right on.
40 minutes from Dulles, like 50 minutes from DC, but 40 minutes from Dulles.
My old haunt, actually. I was down in DC for a few years back in my other life, my rock and roll DJ life, you know, for XM.
Yeah. I was in DC. I worked in DC for my other life, which was government contract cybersecurity life. So it's not the opposite.
Still pretty cool. Shirley's here. Chris, nice to see you guys. Hey, Laura, what's happening, everybody? This is my friend Brian Fanzo. Look at him. He's so amazing. He's just he's the best. We're gonna have a really good time today. For those of you who haven't met Brian, he's a fire rocket of sparkly ideas and insights.
Fire rocket of sparkly ideas.
What do you think?
My daughter's
earlier.
I like that a lot. That encapsulates. That works really well for me. I'll take that.
Okay, wait. So in our Slack channel, which I need to invite you to, we have like a Slack for our team. Sweet. I think I called you like what was it, Lauren? It's like an Indiana Jones size boulder of energy. I don't know.
I love it. What's up, Vicky? Vicky McLeod in the house. Hey, Vicky.
Vicky's cool. Wow. Hi, everybody. This is going to be so fun. All right. So let me give you guys some quick background on Brian while people are kind of trickling in there. And let us know where you are. You can rub it in if you're somewhere nice, like Steve is in Puerto Rico, I know. John, what's up? Hey, Dr. Zach. Okay, cool. So Brian, everybody, is a digital futurist keynote speaker, among other things, who translates the trends of tomorrow to inspire change today. His customized and personalized programs showcase real-world stories, say that 5 times fast, and examples of forward-thinking people and businesses. So he's really got his hands on all the buttons, right? He teaches companies of all sizes how to leverage tech, both in real time and thinking in the future, and it's all designed around engaging their customers at what is the right time. Brian has a true gift for bringing people together. His heart and sincerity jump through the screen. If you haven't seen that already, you're going to see it in the next 30 minutes. He's worked in 76 countries, which is pretty mind-blowing. And change, collaboration, and technology are what he lives and breathes. So please meet my friend Brian, and thanks, Brian, for being with us today.
Thanks for having me. Oh, I had clicked off the wrong button again. There you go. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, cool. And thanks, everybody. So as usual, guys, feel free to ask questions, comments. What's up, Katie Jordan in the house? And, you know, give us your feedback. We want to know. But, you know, I was thinking today, Brian, like we've been talking a lot about just virtual stuff. Everybody's switching to virtual and, you know, conferences and Zoom, and you and I and our team have been Zooming forever or some version of that. So this isn't new for us. And it's a two-way street, right? So back to my radio days, like I know how to talk to people in the dark in the closet really well. So like talking to Zoom and no one being in front of me is not a new thing for me, right? And so part of that two-way street is the presenter themselves. Like, what can you do to break down the fourth wall or make it a newer experience, right? So one of the things I was thinking about was like, I've been doing this for so long, the things that I've made this cool are not cool anymore because now everybody's doing it, number one. And then the other side is like, we want to talk about what can we do to not get over zoomed, like to be so jaded by this experience that people are already being like, oh God, another Zoom call, right?
Yep.
So, it's a wild west of thoughts here today, and I know that you've got a lot of them, and that's where I'd like to start.
Yeah, so I think it's interesting because I think it's kind of twofold in the sense of, everyone is kind of into Zoom. Like my dad's 67th birthday was on Zoom. My daughter was so mad that she was using Google Meet and not Zoom, and I was like, "Do you know the difference?" She's like, "No, but I want to Zoom," and I was like, just like it took over, and I feel like it's one of those things like. We've been preaching the power of video, the importance of video. You're gonna suck on it when you start, and it's not as easy as it looks, and all that side. But it was like almost this weird element of like preaching and getting maybe 20% of people there, and all of a sudden out of nowhere it was like 90% hardcore. And anytime you force anyone, to, like good luck, right? Because they're gonna be in a bad mood, they're not gonna like it. But like my dad said, like it was one of his favorite birthday parties he's ever had. Because I'm in Virginia, my other brother's in Dallas, they're in Arizona, and it was long and fun, and we were making, trading virtual backgrounds, and it was a really engaging time, and I also feel like it's this, because everyone's tried it now, they also realize it's not as easy as it looks, and there's a big difference between building momentum on video and just pressing a Zoom button, letting people look up your nose, typing, not knowing what the button is, like that whole world. And so I feel like there's like a newfound respect for this, but there is an entire group that is like, oh, like video. And for me, like, it's so funny because speakers, I learned this a long time ago. Some of my favorite speakers in the world, horrible on video, like absolutely turn into a robot as if like, meeting and you're like, you're the most engaging live presenter I've ever seen. And here I cringe. But it's the same with like YouTube creators. Like some of my favorite YouTube creators in the world, you put them on stage and you're like, wait, why do you have it? Like, so like there's like that skill. And so I think one of the things that's been probably the most interesting is just kind of figure out what people want, right? Because a lot of people were forced virtual because they had to work from home. A lot of us were forced virtual. I lost on March 10th, between March 10th and March 16th, I lost 18 speaking gigs and all 4 of my full-time clients. And those clients were 3+ years. Shell shocked. And at the same time, I was using virtual to build my offline business. I had pivoted all in on speaking, 90% of my revenue. And so people were like, Brian, this is perfect for you. And I was like, well, I use virtual to build offline business, right? I do webinars all the time, and my call to action is like, hire me to speak, right? And all of a sudden it was like, here's a virtual thing to hire me to do another virtual thing to hire, it was like this weird,
the layers
that I anticipated it being a lot more difficult than ever. The amount of people are calling me like congratulate me, like, oh, your help, you've been preaching for people to embrace technology and virtual and social media, like they're all in your wheelhouse now. And I was like, I'm not really sure that's like the path I would wanted them to take, and I've been on lockdown, crazy enough, I haven't talked to an adult other, I'll have my 3 daughters here, but I haven't talked to an adult in person since March 7th. Since March 7th was, I dropped my kids off with their mom and I pick them up. I don't have friends here locally. I've been self-quarantined. Actually, the weekend, I took my bike out to a local brewery and sat out on the patio by myself. So that was like my first time out of the house. And so, but I've also worked from home for 14 of my 17 years of my career. I worked for the US government, Pentagon for a while, worked at a data center for a little while, but for the most part, I've worked from home. But like, I also built my life around travel, 76 countries, about 40 weeks of the year on the road. So this has been like it's been a weird like whole environment. And I think now it's like, because we were all living this like unknown future, which is like so frustrating and so demoralizing. And we were treating it people were treating this a lot like a Band-Aid. And I think now we're realizing like, A, there's so much value here that we've all believed that was here. And then B, like we're going to figure out why we have offices and why we have certain things in our world. feel like also like, what can we do virtually? And so like my big preaching has been, we can't repurpose what we do offline virtually. We have to reinvent what we do. And to me, that simple narrative change is really important because let's face it, as a speaker, you put me on looking at a camera for 60 minutes and I give you my keynote. It's called a TED Talk or a YouTube video. There's hundreds of thousands of them posted every day and no one's gonna pay me my fee that way. And so like, now it's like, okay, how do we do this? How do we think about emotional connection? How do we set up our environment to change and use multiple cameras? I just set up I have 4 cameras going here. I think I can see. I have 4.
Look at this. Okay, this is a master at work here, right?
4 camera views into my house here in my little apartment. And I can tell you, like, this isn't fancy gear. It's 2 GoPros, a Logitech a web camera, and another Logitech camera. So like,
and do you think like
fun, but it's also like I want to use them for a reason, not use them for using them sake. And I feel like we are now like, I think Zoom burnout's not a thing. I think Zooming for no reason. It's kind of like having meetings when you should just send an email and you're like, well, we turned Zoom in that for a lot of it. And now people are like, okay, if we're going to do this, let's do it for a reason. But it's been wild. I mean, if you would have said in February, we're going to shut down the world, everyone's going to work from home, go virtual.
I know.
And, my parents are going to know what Zoom is. I was like, no way.
Yeah, I mean, I was just talking to, so Lauren actually, who you probably met, and she's on the chat here today. She got offered to do her first interview. Usually people are asking me, and I was like, yes, this is awesome. Talking about customer success and sales enablement. And so we were just talking about some tips. And one of the things like that I was thinking about, and you put your button on it, right? It's like, how do we get that in-person energy, which you get from going to a concert, for example, that wave of communal, energy. It's something that you don't get this way, right? But I've seen it a little bit. So Gary Vee, when I'm watching him on Instagram and all the hearts are bubbling up and he's checking in with the chat. So like, Carrie here is looking for the 4 cameras on one, which is great. And these guys are, so he's better than I am about getting all those conversations. But there is kind of magic that can be conveyed. So when Lauren and I were talking today about how to handle this, I was thinking about the things that we do naturally on Zoom in our demos or in our live things. And so one of them is this, like looking in the camera, okay, which is hard to do because the cameras are down and they're up. And then also looking at how you look, right, setting up the scene behind you. And, I'm very careful to like smile or wink or whatever. Like I'm very cautious of what's happening here. I'm very aware of what you're perceiving because, for example, if you're talking to me and I'm just paying attention, my face might be a resting bitch face, which like doesn't translate well on camera. So like I purposely can see this, and so I put on a smile, right? So give me something like that. Like what's one tip that you can give people to like cut through the screen?
So I think the biggest one's smiling, right? Like if we have a tendency to just like, forget. Like I drag my boxes underneath my web camera, right? So my web camera is on top of my monitor. Now I have a standing desk, so like I can press a button, and as you can see, it's going up. It's which is also nice because I can change the line of sight, right? And that changes the dynamic, right? Like if you're thinking about an emotional connection, like I'm sitting on a stool right now. When I'm standing, I portray it's like a power broadcast in your face, and sometimes to the point where like some people on a podcast interview be like, Brian, can you sit for our podcast? Like you're too intense. I'm not that intense, right? And then the difference between a chair versus someone that when you have like a laid back, and I think you can use all of them to facilitate the emotional connection that you want to use, right? And so like for me, one of the presentations when I do a longer, like I did a 90-minute workshop, halfway through it, I play like a 2-minute clip. And when they come back, I have a black background, a regular chair, and a camera that looks over top. And so I'm like, hey guys, let's have a conversation. And I bring someone on screen. And so it's not me on stage anymore, it's having a chat. And I'm like, you know what? It's time for me to share some more. I come back on this side, white background into the power mode, right? It's that little, and like my recommendation is changing something up every 6 to 8 minutes if you're presenting. If you're in like a Zoom, like I'm not a huge fan of virtual backgrounds, but I am a fan of embracing things like, like I always love like so I have like these Pro Boy pillows. I have a whole bunch of them that have all kinds of, and I will set them up behind me. I will sometimes be like, oh, I love that, right? And just showing like that emotion, because it is part of that. If we look at how we interact offline, that connection, it's really the reason for me. I hate recording video for YouTube. I love going live, because I get fuel from the comment, like just the comments here, right? Like, oh, hey, oh, that's so cool. Like, you know, like just something about that, like nonverbal feedback. And if you're not getting that, or even if you're like, I did a presentation this morning, and they had the control room, the back of house, like, I mean, it was a big event, all in the Zoom bubbles. And so there are people running around, yelling at each other, people giggling, and I'm trying to present for 45 minutes, and I have no chat window because the chat window is not working with the tool that I was using. And so I was like, I'm getting every piece of nonverbal feedback that I don't want, like, because it looks like no one's in like, and they got headphones on. And I thought I gave them the feedback afterwards. You know, it's one of those things we learned. But like, so like, I think part of it too is like setting up your environment for you. Like if you like like the reason this is a white background is I use a Prezi tool that does these overlays. You know, that's how I'm presenting lately, with these overlays, and it works really well with the white background. I'm also moving, so I took off some of the yellow stickies. But like, I love people that put books behind there to drive conversation, right? Like having yours with your name, right? Like even mine, like I have like if we looked at my, so I have that bookcase right there. You can kind of see.
Yep.
That bookcase, I moved.
And your old Mac. Look at that classic Mac you have.
Yeah, like, I mean, like here, this is what I do. We're gonna do it on.
I love seeing what's behind people. It's my favorite thing. So like, oh, it's a pillow.
So yeah, so there we go. So like, and we have you know, cool. I dropped my iPod pillow. Right, I have
all your props.
Oh, look at that! Like, and it smells like
oh, it's purple. Awesome.
Yes.
That's great.
Like, I think
props.
That's part of it too, is like when we don't have the energy to share, it's our job to manufacture that and create that and be strategic.
Totally.
I do it everything from when I move in and move out. Like for my presentation,
I was noticing that.
I had 6 sticky notes on the floor, and I moved my bare feet to a sticky note because I know that's where a cue is, and it changes up that dynamic. And it might not be as obvious for a lot of people, but I can tell you, it's such a huge difference between looking into up someone's note on a Zoom call. And it's not just, speaking, and, it's your weekly calls, it's your, and I think that's part of what we have to think about. And, like, I like to put, because I talk a lot and go all over the place. I'm a sticky note fan. So for all of my stuff, I put the sticky notes underneath my web camera on top of my monitor. And so I can go down, I can answer a question, go down a rabbit hole and go, all right, so I did those 2. Okay, third one is this. And it gives me
know where you're going,
but it doesn't prevent me from like staying somewhat on task. Right. And so I think you have to try these things out. And I like the way you set this up at the beginning, because part of it was like, press the damn button, like pressing the button a lot and getting used to video. You almost like, you forgive yourself for every mistake, and you become very okay with the authenticity, which is what people like. But when it's not shared and it's not mutual, it can come off very, I mean, like I did a presentation for a company in Dubai, and they were so worried about my hat and me wearing a t-shirt. And I was so worried about sharing a dynamic using the web camera. And so like I wearing different clothes if they were willing to give me their attention, and they wanted a long presentation. It was after hours. It was, at night. But I found like it was so interesting when I shared some of these things. I said, I call it the 4 E's. Emotion, convey emotion, create an environment that you work well in, execute, which is press the damn button. You don't know what works until you try it. You don't know what's a good background until you're like your third time and someone's like, I'm so distracted by your giant horse, like it's like, you're like, whatever it may be. So we have, the first one is emotion, environment, execute, and the fourth one is empathy, right? Like we have to be able to listen.
I love those. Put those in the chat. Somebody cut that out.
Yes,
okay.
And like,
keep going.
I think like the idea of actively listening on video is hard, because we have a tendency in the conference call world of like, oh, they're talking, right? Or I have 3 monitors up here, right? Like I could multitask all day. And so if you're interviewing, I'm like, I can go here but it changes up your experience. It changes up, you know, and so I think
Thanks, Carrie.
having to be strategic with all of these actions can feel overwhelming, but when you get very used to it, it becomes so natural that it looks as if like it's effortless, right? And I think that's part of that weird world.
So two things I just want to point out here to everybody. Another thing that Brian is doing, and he's probably conscious of it, but he's using his hands a lot. And this is something Lauren and I were talking about as well, is that if you do talk with your hands, which you should, you know, try to angle your camera down enough so that people can see it, because it does, I mean, this is a very human thing to do specifically, right? It does help bridge that gap. And the other thing, Brian, that you were saying that I was thinking about is there's another skill here that I learned in radio, which is it's the ability to feel the energy of an audience you can't see or hear. So even when the chat is quiet, it is way more helpful. Like I seed the chat with my team, right? They're all on here. It's not because they're bored and they have nothing to do today. Right. They're designed to create conversation for the people who are here to help you guys be more comfortable and to make this more beneficial for all of us, frankly. And we get lead gen off it. I mean, let's be honest, okay? Right. So there's that, but sometimes you don't have that happening for you. And that could be in the scenario of an online event. It could be in the scenario of a sales demo, right? When the people on the other end are just quiet, they have their mute buttons on. You're like, you like this or what? And so here's the things I've learned, and I'd love you to tell us what you've learned. Number one, I will sort of psychologically like command people to do things. I'll be like, this is the part where you laugh. Right? All right. Here's the part where you lean in and go, wow. And that's helpful.
I like that.
Yeah, exactly. And they do. I mean, sometimes touches on what you said before. Sometimes it's your job to give people the permission to join in with you, right? Yes. Right. What else have you found in that area?
So I think managing expectations before the event is the most important. So, I mean, I was the person that signed up for 10 webinars a week and planned on attending none of them. Right? I would sign up and be like, they're going to send me the recording with a slide deck. And I like just kind of how I treated it. And like, I got paid to do a lot of webinars, and I had a certain deck that was the same deck. I couldn't customize it. And it was the same fee. And I would do a couple of those, maybe 1 or 2 a month. And I kind of just treated it that way. And so I don't care how good you are at engaging and creating an amazing atmosphere. If I'm going into it, treating it like I have webinars for the last 10 years, I'm not planning on giving you my full attention. I'm not planning on looking at the chat, right? And so that education of the audience is extremely important. Like, hey, just so you know, we're going to bring in your questions. And I think to make virtual events like these valuable, there is only as good as the chat. There is only as good as the people watching, right? Like we are partners. And when you, like you said, when you're putting that out there, you're not only,
all of us.
You're like, hey, this is us together creating it. And like, I always tell people, like my favorite advice to give people I coach from speaking is that just remember every person here wants you to succeed. Nobody goes to a NASCAR race. You go to a NASCAR race hoping there's a crash, because that's kind of what we do. on a keynote, you're like, I hope they give the best keynote they've ever given in their entire life because I'm stuck in this room. And weirdly, like in virtual, we almost like forget that like mutual obligation of like, hey, I'm going to show up and I need you to show up. And, sometimes when we, one bad webinar experience, right? Or 2 bad webinar experiences, we could alienate someone from coming off on a really great experience. Like one of the things that I really worry right now is there are a lot of brands that have tried, maybe 2 or 3 big brands that have tried different events, and they need to go back to the drawing board and come back with something that's super valuable, because
it's boring.
Unsubscribe, not tune in. I don't care if you have Simon Sinek doing backflips on the next event. I'm not tuning in because you just wasted my time for these first 3, right? And so it is that like interesting, balance on that. And I think part of it too is like not being afraid. Like this is one of my pitches now. Every brand comes to me for a virtual event strategy, and they'll say, Brian, we want you to create an interactive event. How can we do that? And I was like, I don't think you want an interactive event, do you? And they're like, no, that's what we want you to do. And I was like, do you want to maintain the attention of your audience, or do you want to create interactivity? And they're like, oh.
Right.
Because the platform, the way I present, the way I coach, the cameras that I'm going to use will change. If I'm going for interactivity, I'm going to build in, like in one of my talks, I do a 5 minutes in, I put up 3 stories, 3 pictures of me. And it's one of me in Iraq, one of me playing poker, and one of me when I was in college. And I was like, vote on which of these 3 you would like me to use as my final story. And people are pointing in the audience,
Nice.
my last one, like every person voted Iraq. And I was like, what, is everyone afraid? You're just surprised that like, that I survived? You know, and the chat just like blew up with like all these questions. And I can tell you, I mean, we had 400
Amazing.
questions.
Note to self.
Only like 200 people in the entire session, right? It's because I put that there, I rated it, right? And like the other thing as a presenter, like your radio, I hate silence. Like dead air silence is like, I hate it in conversation.
I love it.
But you have to, like as a speaker, it's been the thing.
You have to use it though. You have to use it.
Using that dramatic pause, and especially because I talk fast, I use it so well on stages. And I can tell you, I'm much better now using it virtually, where I will ask for a question, and when you don't see one, if you don't really care about engagement, you go, okay, you know, get those questions in there, and then you go on. If you do, you don't, now you're like, okay, follow up with a question. Like, and one of my favorites is, I like 2-fold questions, right? So rather than saying, hey, where's everybody dialing in from? It's like, hey, where's everybody coming in from? You know, what's the weather at your place? Because it catch that, you know, if you do those 2 prongs, it usually hits somebody.
Give them that choice.
Other, right? Because you're like, I'm not going to tell them where I'm from. Oh, what's the weather? You know, 77 degrees here in Northern Virginia, right? Like, it's like that weird, or like, what's your favorite sports team, or maybe the favorite concert you ever went to? Well, now you're going to invoke someone's like, oh, I hate live music, but, you know, go Eagles. Right? And like, little things like that really, really work if interactivity is your goal. But there's also plenty of space for, I just want your attention. I want you to be able to take notes and be involved in this. And interactivity isn't the goal. And I think that's kind of one of those things that, you know, it's hard to explain that to people that, because let's face it, we're still measuring vanity metrics in social media, which is like, that's a whole other soapbox, right? Like, and part of it is just because like, we're measuring it because that's what they give us, right? Like, and that's just like, come on now. And I know, you know, that we've had that conversation before, but like that also comes into this fact of like, if you want, like if lead generation is your goal, what if I can help by using the polls and the Q&A to figure out which of the leads that are in there are the most mature based on questions that I'm interacting with them as a presenter. Like I said it to an event a week ago, and they're like, wait, you're willing to do that? I was like, you help me define what success is for you, and I'll build that into the presentation, and now we'll achieve that. And I think it's usually one of those things like, we need that speaker because he'll attract people and they'll sign up for our list and we'll use it for lead gen. And it's like, well, actually, let's figure out it's a topic that we can, you know, weed out. Let's use this for more than kind of a quote unquote vanity metric.
The person. Yeah, exactly. Look at, he's amazing, right, guys? I mean, you can't, there's like, it's so much, so much awesomeness. So I guess, Brian, we got to wrap it up. And my last question is maybe philosophical, but do you think that business-wise, is there anything that we can't translate virtually?
I mean, it's the hug, right? It's that like, for me, you know, just I explain my situation, like co-consuming something. Like I did like a Netflix and watch party for the last Michael Jordan documentary, and I had a whole bunch of my friends that were on there, and it was really fun and rewarding, but it was still not the same, right? Because, you know, when we hang out in person, we shut off the camera, and we're gonna go have a drink, and we're gonna have, like, or we're gonna, you know, relax, and that's really missing, right? And I think one of the things that is a struggle is that when the event ends, when something, it is very like it's, you know, like end meeting, and it literally means like the end. And I think that finite end doesn't usually exist. Like, I mean, we can close down the bar and oftentimes wake up in the morning and go have breakfast, right? Like there's that piece of it. And then I think from like a true business side of it, I think, you know, rebuilding trust is really hard, right? Like I think establishing trust initially, easy to do, you know, definitely a virtual game. Maintaining trust, definitely a virtual game. But if you completely alienate and lose trust across the board, there is regaining that. I watched the Lance Armstrong documentary. Still wear my Livestrong bracelet on my wrist. And for me, like, there is that, like, there was pieces of that documentary that I was like balling up sad for him for some, like there's like that, there's an empathy connection, but there's
it's
also
insurmountable.
Like, man, if he was there 8 feet in front of me sharing that story, the dynamic is, you know, is definitely different. But, you know, I think reinventing, like, I think every restaurant needs to reinvent where technology plays, right? Like, let's change everything from, you know, like where the cameras are in your restaurant. Like, let's go transparent. Like, why can't every cook before you open have the thing up there and give you the, like their line, you know, process, and give you like kind of a behind, let's take this and I really do believe reinvent every aspect. And I don't care what business you're in, service, you know, Brian Kramer, you know, human to human, right? And the element of human to human that I always love virtually is the idea that it's participatory, which is what we're doing here.
Yeah.
I believe participatory content is in like the 5% thing, right? Like the things we're burnt out with is people talking at us. The things that were, you know, the news where we don't have a say, or Twitter feels like it's just like overwhelming of noise, right? But I haven't heard anybody saying, man, I feel too included right now with too many conversations, or I really feel like people are caring too much about my emotional state.
That's funny.
We don't have that, right? And I think that's that piece. And I think, you know, it's really hard. Like as much as I it's the reason I left the government. It's the reason when I get up, I always say, like, I like to help people find the synergy between technology innovation and humanity. And that synergy is where we believe we change the world. But there's no way that's easy. And when you've never worked from home, like I was talking, like outside my front, and the lady next door, she's like, "You like do computer stuff or something? I've seen your lights in your room." I was like, "Yeah." She's like, my 33-year-old daughter has been working at a 5-star restaurant, making 6 figures, and never owned a computer. Well, now she's going to be able to train some of the people that she wasn't me before. So her job's going, but she's never owned a computer. And I was like, you're like, because there's some aha moments there where we're like, wait a second, right? And so I think this is that process too of like, you know, for me, it comes down to like remembering what we don't know as an average, and kind of figuring out how to reinvent things from a business. Like I really think we can be transparent, we can be honest, we can build that trust. I think that, you know, the rebuilding is the hard one. And I think the last piece of virtual is we can redefine who we want to reach, right? The idea that we need to reach everyone is so ridiculous, right? Like offline, we're like, give me one new qualified lead a day, every day, 365. I'll be the happiest person ever. We go online, we're like 20,000 views on a video.
10 million.
Yeah. Like, well, how did this not go viral? I want to reach the world. And you're like, hold on. And I think this is
reset.
Where I predict the future going, in that we are going to go very micro exclusive groups, exclusive content, like, you know, build big community, and then really focus in on these like individual small groups virtually. And I think brands can do that. Like, I mean, why not doing, you know, collaboration sessions with, you know, the 5 other brands in your, you know, 5 other marketing agencies in your local town, and you guys do like, you know, internal town hall, like those kind of things. Like, I just think there's so much opportunity, but we have to not use, this is where the sales pitch on it. We can't use offline limitations online. If we take those off, if the things that limit us offline, we put them online, virtual has no, like, it will never replace.
Right. It's not going to work like that.
Like,
throw those out, you know, it's funny. So, I mean, we're going long, and I hope everybody's okay. We'll wrap it up here shortly, but I mean, this is interesting to me. So 2 things I wanted to say, which was, I personally did have the fatigue of not wanting to connect with people when this all started, but I had a unique situation where I just, in my mind, failed to raise a raise twice in a year and a half. And so I felt like a failure, number one, and was traveling all over and was just tired. And so I needed to hide. And also, like, I mean, we've been doing this as a business for years now. I mean, I've been working from home for more than a decade and online and all this. So it's something I do every day. And when my whole family wanted to have like dinner online, I was like, God, no, kill me now. I don't want to do this anymore. You know,
I was the same way.
But that was me. Yeah. Just like I need a break. Right. And also they wanted you to teach them how to do it too. It was like a lot. But the other thing you were saying, which is interesting as a company, is we're seeing that For example, we sell, as many of you know, we sell individual. You meet a person, her name is Lauren or his name is Chris, and you get to know them, they get to know you, and that's how we make our sales. Now, for years, every investor and every SaaS expert in the world has been telling me you can't scale a business like this, right? But we are. So, and every time we try to do it the other way, it doesn't work. And now we know we can get better, but like, I feel like now more than ever, we're doing what you just said. We're going, little group by little group, because there's more value there, and because we've gotten really good at getting that human across as much as we can, right? Yeah. And thanks to people like you who've been setting the bar for us. So to that end, I want to, you said the most winning thing here today, and I was going to say the handshake, but let's be honest. I mean, we're huggers. So can we coordinate everybody and like just do our best? Like, what is it?
Yes.
I'm a really good hugger. I'm a strong hugger.
Yeah. See, that's where the heart pillow comes in all day. Yes.
It's good.
And I think that piece that you're saying too, like, part of it too comes into, you're doing those one-to-ones. It's turning those new ones that you bring in to now an advocate, right? And growing that out. And I think like for all of us, like I was the same way as you, burn out from like every call was so like frustrating, and you turn into tech support, and like it was like a thing, and it's emotionally draining. But I also think like if each one of us individually take it upon ourselves to give one person a virtual hug every day, right? Like be good to people. I really do think we can make that like just that extend, right? Like it's reach. I mean, I did this morning, and it not like tooting my horn, but like I woke up this morning and I happened to like do that accidental slide on your iMessage, and I was like, oh, what in the? Like I would just like grab my phone, and it was a text. The last time I had texted her was in December of this year, and I was like, I haven't texted Julia, and I clicked on it and it hit voice memo and just said, hey Julia, just got up. I was like, I accidentally clicked on my phone, and somehow I clicked on you. I've been love watching your Instagram stories. Hope you're doing well. We went back and forth like 13 voice messages while I was getting ready. And she happened to be going through something yesterday that was very traumatic for her. And like, for me, it was like, it took me 8 seconds, right, to like hold that down. And so, and I think that's where we sometimes get overwhelmed, like reach everyone, get on every virtual call. But I guess I just say, hey, reach out and give everybody a virtual call. I love that we did this. It's been too long. Last time I was like in a hallway, like outside of an airport. Like I remember like I was down the hall like to jump in this like little cubicle.
It was cool though.
It was cool. It was like, how long ago was that? It seems like, I don't even remember.
We were saying on Facebook, everybody, that like we would long to be in a random hallway right now.
Oh my goodness. I was like, give me an airport delay right now. Like just give me an airport delay where I can just sit around and watch people be silly and people watch. Like
believe it or not, is that crazy? That's amazing. All right, we gotta go. Yep. It's hard to go. I love you. Thank you, Brian. Thanks everybody. Rock and roll. We'll see you next time.
Cheers. Everybody.